Big Rican on Sports podcast. It is the Big Rican Baseball Show, and as I said the last time we did this, it is like I say Big Rican Baseball Show, and Alex magically appears from Chicago, off to my left or my right. Alex, hello, sir. How is things?
All is well, my friend. All is well. Just looking to, take a deep dive into the baseball world and probably go an hour 15, hour and a half, hour and whatever.
I'm old, Alex.
But for baseball, come on. The
Yeah, that's true.
conversation the conversation can go all night.
That's very true. So, could the trade deadline? I haven't listened to your deadline show yet because let me see. The deadline was Tuesday. Wednesday, I was doing my homework for this. Thursday, I was off. And then Friday, of course, is Fridays. And I haven't had a chance to yet, but I know you always bring it, like we always bring it when we're together. So let's dive in. Was this the craziest trade deadline you can remember?
On Tuesday it was. I mean, the rest of the weekend was basically radio silence. But
Yeah.
as we knew, the chips would really start to fall when the Juan Soto deal kind of got done, and then from there it really got rolling. And I know there were a couple deals kind of scattered in between and prior to, but it really wasn't until Tuesday around, I guess, 9:30, 10 o'clock my time, Central Time, the ball really got rolling. And from there, teams showed that they were competing, and then some teams showed that they're waving the white flag. So
Yeah, and I mean let's start with one of the earlier trades, and it's my favorite deal that was made because I'm a big dude, and this was a big dude as the New York Mets send relief pitcher Colin Holderman to the Pittsburgh Pirates for the man who we're calling the Grizzly Bear, or the V Unit, Daniel Vogelbach, who, by the way, scored from first on a double today, and the Mets win against Atlanta. Homeboy can move.
I believe it. I've seen him run before, and he's a unit, but he can move.
Yes, he can. And Met fans, we latch on to the big dudes. We miss Bartolo. I mean, come on. But now let's dive into what that does. Now, I saw a funny stat the other night. The first night home for the other below the radar acquisition the Mets made, which is outfielder Tyler Naquin, who I think is massive to this team. Because they basically upgraded the two spots you wanted them to. Tyler Naquin is basically Travis Jankowski with power. Good defensive outfielder, great speed, got a lot of pop in his bat. Vogelbach is Vogelbach. I mean, you talk about they should put it up there. The two guys with the lowest chase rates in all of baseball are him and Juan Soto, who we'll get to. He was a little bit of a newsmaker there on Tuesday.
Just a little bit.
But I wanted the funny stat I saw. In the first so many games of the season, the Mets platoon at DH between J.D. Davis and Dom Smith yielded 4 home runs. Naquin and Vogelbach hit 3 the other night. So, as much as we would have loved to have seen the Mets go bigger, because that's all they've done since Steve Cohen has become the owner, is go big. I love the Vogelbach move. I love the trade for Tyler Naquin. So, sorry, the cat's getting in the way. So, I think they started off really well going into August 2nd. As Vogelbach had been there for a few days. Naquin was a few days before the deadline. The other deal that got the thing done, that got it started, was Andrew Benintendi going from Kansas City to the Yankees. Hilarious part about this deal was done before the game against the Mets on the 27th was concluded. And when they lost the game in walk-off style to the Mets, they announced the trade. Hate them. Oh, your dad's Cardinals swept them this weekend.
That was a shocker right there, to say the least. But, I mean, kudos to the Cardinals for showing up.
Especially Jordan Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
who was very good on Friday night against his former team.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he kind of
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, he kind of took the trade personal.
I don't blame him. I mean, don't get me wrong. He hasn't been what the Yankees wanted him to be. But neither has Garrett Cole. So I don't know why people are getting on Jordan Montgomery. So the unpacking what went on before the second, I think it's going to be a little more impactful than what happened on the second. Because as you said before we went on, the Dodgers are slapping the Padres around. So let's, you know what, we brought it up. Let's go there. The biggest deal in trade deadline history. And I'm going to go to read who went where. Of course, I'm talking about Juan Soto going to the San Diego Padres. Let me get to this here, which was just insanity. Just absolute insanity. That and Syndergaard. Sorry. Oh, where's the deal? There it is. Okay, so Josh Bell and Juan Soto from the Washington Nationals go west to San Diego for left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore, outfielder Robert Hassel III, shortstop C.J. Abrams, outfielder James Wood, right-handed pitcher Jarlin Susana, and the last-minute addition of 2020 American League home run champion Luke Voigt, who apparently dropped about 7 or 8 F-bombs in the San Diego clubhouse when he was told he was included in the deal because Eric Hosmer would not waive his no-trade clause to go to Washington. Hosmer's later dealt to Boston. Good for Hosmer. First of all, good for Hosmer. Second of all, Boston went right to Kansas City, by the way. So he went home with the Red Sox. So let's dive into that 2 for 5 or 6 deal that the Nationals dole out. Do you know in the last 4 years they've gotten rid of or traded away Bryce Harper, Anthony Rendon, Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Josh Bell? How does Mike Rizzo still have a job?
Excellent question. Clean slate, and those are all all-star caliber players, MVP caliber players, and for Mike Rizzo to be still employed is a shocker to me.
I tell you what, getting Mackenzie Gore in that deal is huge, though.
It is, but as we mentioned beforehand, I wouldn't be surprised if they move him at a certain point either.
You know, I think so too. I saw some C.J. Abrams, as we haven't seen Tatis yet this year, when they played the Mets both times, and he's a very good young shortstop who had a ceiling because of where Tatis was. Of course, he's being told he's going to play shortstop, center field, and DH in his rehab assignment, which started over the weekend. I don't know much about Robert Hassel. I don't know much about James Wood. Luke Voigt is a nice pickup for the fans now. He's going to hit some bombs. He's going to be a decent force in the middle of that lineup. But the question I want to ask you is, Alex, what is going to be Juan Soto's actual impact on the San Diego Padres?
I mean, the impact will be there because, I mean, obviously he'll deliver in those clutch moments. And I know with that new trio that it will be Machado, him, and Tatis, I think they'll probably wreak some havoc on teams that they play. However, when you're kind of going through a series right now that they're going through and playing against Big Brother, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who were idle in a sense. I mean, they traded for Joey Gallo, but really didn't make any significant moves, but are handling them thoroughly from, Thursday to today right now, and they're up 2-0 in the 5th or 6th inning. I think that, the dividends might be there, but ultimately at the end of the day, I think that the Dodgers are still going to reign supreme just because of who they have and their experience in getting to the promised land. That's ultimately my thought process on it.
Yeah, that experience is, I think, going to be the tipping point there because not only did they go out and get Juan Soto and Josh Bell, they also went out and got Josh Hader. Which I talked to you about that when it happened. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what's Milwaukee thinking?
I mean, they were leading the division prior to the trade, and now they're 2 games behind the Cardinals. So, I don't exactly know what they were thinking, being that they were the front runners in the NL Central, which is already weak to say the least. But I'm guessing they're banking on Devin Williams to kind of be their savior at the end of the ball games here going forward.
Well, like I said to Willie the other night, who hopefully will get on at some point in time. If not, we'll do another show with him, obviously, down the road. He's got that Bugs Bunny changeup.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devastating. I even play with him on the show, and it's filthy. Couple other deals that happened that I thought was kind of head-scratching, but also kind of smart. Because remember, San Diego also sent them Taylor Rogers
Mm-hmm.
in that move, and Dinelson Lamet. San Diego's going all in.
Who's already been designated for assignment by the Brewers too.
Has he really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Why that is, I don't really know. I don't know if it's an injury issue, if it's personal matters, or just not a roster spot for him. But to my last understanding of it, he's got DFA'd.
Wow.
Hmm?
That's crazy. Oh, my video just left. There it was. So what happens when I put the Pepsi bottle behind the camera thing? All right, so that's two of the deals. And like I said, Josh Hader, I think, was another piece no one saw coming. So now Milwaukee's down 2. And, of course, as we were talking about before, the St. Louis Cardinals swept the New York Yankees this weekend. Do you think they can put together a run in Waino and Yadier and Pujols' final season?
100%, because you got Arenado and Goldschmidt when they're in the lineup having MVP caliber seasons, and if those two guys go and you get a little bit of assistance from everybody else in the lineup, and then your pitching can pull some strings, and with the addition of Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees, I think with that experience and that roster, and knowing that this is probably Yadi's last season, and Pujols, his sayonara from the MLB, I think that they have it in them, and they know that Cardinal fans and people around baseball know that the Cardinals always find a way to somewhat be competitive and put those little runs together, as we've seen what they did last year, right around this time too.
Yeah, no, they absolutely can put a run together now. Do you think that Goldschmidt and Arenado actually get vaccinated if they have to play the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series?
What a question. Probably not, and ultimately that would cost them. But that's their decision, and I would hope that in my mind that if they were to get to that last point, and maybe in the World Series potentially playing a Canadian baseball team in the Toronto Blue Jays, that they would get vaxxed. But if you do want to consider your costing your team a World Series championship and yourself a World Series ring, then
I kind of said that. I kind of made that comment in jest, but it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Another deal that kind of blew my mind.
Castillo?
No. Well, kinda. Castillo more because of where he landed.
Well, that was the route that I wanted to go, and I know you were going to go to a different spot, and we'll get there in just a second. But kudos to the Mariners for going in and showing that they're trying to make an effort. But you're not gonna catch the Astros. They're like 11 or 10 games back or whatever it may be. So, barring anything astronomical happening, it's kind of a so-so move, I guess.
It is and it isn't, because remember, there's 3 wild card teams now. We have the
and
new playoff setup, where, by the way, if it ended today, San Diego's got to go to Atlanta.
Ugh.
Winner of that series gets the Mets.
Either way, thanks for playing.
Thanks for playing. I got to tell you, I love Trey Mancini just absolutely mashing since he got to Houston. I can never not root for that guy.
Wherever he plays, I'm a fan of his. He's just a hard-nosed baseball player. He can hit, play a little defense, kind of, you can plug him in wherever you really need him, and you'll get production out of him ultimately.
I think the only time I'm losing the hat. Forget it. Everybody knows I got no hair in my head. It's also clean shaven. The only time I rooted against him was when he was the finals of the 2021 Derby against Pete. So, okay, so let's go across town from where my boys sit and get to one of the bigger moves of the day, and that is Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino go to the Yankees from Oakland. Willie is not happy. Not happy whatsoever.
I could imagine.
So I'm going to lay it out for you this way. Neither one of us here, I got to fix my cushion there. Neither one of us like the New York Yankees. We don't.
Mm-mm.
It's been very well chronicled on our multiple episodes we've done. Um, and on social media, it's been well chronicled that we do not like the New York Yankees. Um, Having this to say, bravo, Brian Cashman. Great move. I got to give credit where credit's due, especially to a team that now has a serious problem on their hands at the top of their rotation. The chickens have come home to roost, Alex. See, first of all, if I read it right, the Yankees are about a 500 team against teams above or at 500 right now. So against the better teams they've played, the Cardinals, the Mets, Houston, they're at or under 500. Garrett Cole against Seattle. Seattle took 2 of 3 from them. Against Seattle the other day, did he get out of the third inning?
I don't believe so.
That's a problem.
I agree. If he's your multi-million-dollar man and he's going to give you 3-4 innings max against those teams that are above 500, that's not the production you need going into the playoff push right here and into the playoffs.
No, you don't, and it bugs me because would I love to see a Subway Series? Absolutely. I've been waiting 22 years for that. We don't get them. That's why I've been waiting 22 years for that. If they keep playing this way, I don't see how they get there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the deal is interesting because you go out and you get yourself a front end guy who, was give you 5-6 in Oakland. Now different stadium, different you know different opponents. I mean, obviously still in the American League, but you're going to play the East a lot more. You're not going to play the West as much. And then the back end guy in Trevino. Um, but then that point right there, that stat that you gave me right there, where they're struggling against above 500 teams. For Cashman to go in there and push all his chips in, kudos to him, like you mentioned. But if this doesn't pan out, the Bronx is gonna burn. There's gonna be a lot of upset people.
Yeah, they're especially if across town gets to the dance, and they don't. I did not know because of all the. I was working, of course, Tuesday. Because the Grace, I didn't know that the Cardinals got Quintana too.
They did. Mm-hmm.
I like that move. I really do.
They were
It,
from what I was reading, they weren't really in the mix. There were another handful of teams that were in the mix to get Quintana, and somehow they found a way to pull it off. And I don't think they gave up too much for him. So sneaky good arm who can give you either a start or some middle relief, maybe some long relief if necessary. If one of your starters doesn't get what they need out of them. So not a bad move by St. Louis.
no, absolutely not. And of course, staying in the National League, the Toronto Blue Jays just took the Marlins' 2 best relievers. Zach Pop and Anthony Bass from the Marlins for a shortstop prospect. Jordan Groshans is the prospect, I think it said. Yes, Jordan Groshans, who he was a first-round pick in 2018. He's a glove, is what he is. And of course, with Miguel Rojas there, they may move him to play a different position. Watch out for Toronto.
And
I mean,
they got not Benintendi, Whit Merrifield.
yes, which was huge. Let me go to the standings right where they stand right now. Come on. There they are. It's down to 9.5. Are they going to catch them? Probably not.
No.
But
will it?
Oh well, Boston's way out of it.
Boston's out. I don't know why they weren't sellers at all. That kind of baffled me in a sense. The one team that I will give kudos to, and we kind of brought them up very subtly because of the move that they made. How about the Baltimore Orioles?
They were a little quizzical. I mean, it's like, what exactly are you guys doing? You send Jorge Lopez to Minnesota, which unfortunately for you, Alex, and for my brethren in Ohio, I think wraps up the American League Central. that move right there, that back end of the bullpen guy for them. Um, maybe not. Leads only a game over the guards.
If anything,
And your boys are two back.
I believe in the Guardians over anybody else. Over those three, I'm taking the Guardians.
Really?
Yep.
Make me smile, Alex.
I'm just being honest. I was there with my brother. I think it was a number of weeks ago here in town. Guardians were here, and they are a tough team to play. They hit all over the place. Their pitching is pretty good, and the back end of their bullpen is not too shabby.
No, it's not. And is it just me, or is that just a Tito Francona team?
It is. They're a gritty team. They
Yeah.
grind it out. The one thing that I give them, and there's not one massive household name on that team, but I will tell you one guy who I've become a big fan of, and that's Josh Naylor, because when he
I
hits,
love him.
he's probably like around my size, 5'10", 5'11", maybe 210, 215, right around there. He hit a ball like in left center field, should have been a single. He hustled that into a double, and it should not have been a double. But out of the box, he was gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that entire team.
And that right there is why I think that's going to put them over the top in terms of that desire to really want to win. And their pitching is, like I said, not shabby. So I think they have the best out of the three in the Central.
I mean, Tristan McKenzie has been phenomenal. Bieber's been Bieber most of the season. Savali has been great. Zach Plesac has been great. Like you said, their bullpen's been really good. When I did the opening day show with Willie and Nat, Natalie and I both had the Guards get into the playoffs, and Willie called us homers. We don't look like homers right now.
No.
So the standings in the American League, so I was looking there, Toronto's 9.5 back, Tampa Bay 11.5 back, and Baltimore Orioles are 4 games over 500. Who'd have thought? The Central's going to be the dogfight.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland's a game back. The White Sox are 2 games back. Both the White Sox and the Guards are 6-4 in their last 10. Minnesota's 5-5. With a lineup like that with Buxton and Correa and those boys, how they haven't run away yet since they've gotten decent pitching is very shocking to me.
Now, the one thing that I will say, and the one thing that I've noted, is that after the All-Star break, they have the toughest schedule going forward. Toughest opponents.
Did they really?
They do.
Okay. When do they get the Yankees?
That I do not know offhand, but I know that they're just coming off a series right now with Toronto. And I think from here they go on the road, I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me check it out.
Twin schedule.
But they got the Dodgers starting Tuesday.
Yeah, they go to L.A.
L.A., yep.
That's not cool. That's not cool at all. That's rough.
Yep. So, and then a little later this month, they got Astros again, and they're either at home or in San Francisco against the Giants, who, they're not really going anywhere, but they always play people tough.
They really do. Although coming out of the break, going into the break, I think they dropped a 4-game series to the Dodgers, got swept. Coming out of the break, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which really took the Giants right out of the race in the National League West. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Couple more deals I want to get to before I talk about your team next. I know you're not thrilled with them, and I don't mean to listen.
No, it's okay. I would rather go into it because I've already vented to enough people, at least those who are willing to listen. And I just like to vent to you to see what type of feedback you can give me on this to kind of console me.
Well, as a fan of the New York Mets, I can tell you up until this year, I console a lot of people. So the last 2 I want to talk about. Thor's in Philly?
For what?
Because I had for Mikey Moniak and Jadiel Sanchez. But I had told you, because it looked like earlier in the day it was going to be a reunion with the team that drafted him with the Toronto Blue Jays, and then Philadelphia swooped in. His first start, 4 innings, 11 hits, 4 runs.
I mean, I actually mentioned this the other day to my brother on our podcast very briefly towards the end, and I was kind of puzzled as to why they would make that move. I mean, are they on the fringe to get a wild card spot, because they're not sniffing the East at all? So
2 of the 3 wild cards will probably come out of the National League East.
okay.
That is how tight. Well, not really tight. And we'll get into the NL East. That'll be the last thing. Just because, when I get going on the Mets, I don't shut up half the time. So, am I wrong, Alex?
No, you love your boys. It's okay. I get it.
Look, I don't like. It's not that I don't like. They still don't. David Robertson was their big move besides Syndergaard, which again I wanted the Mets to get, but the Mets have a back end of the bullpen that's ready to go. They got a lot. I wanted him sent back to Puerto Rico, and all of a sudden, I love him.
Play the music.
When we get to the Mets, I'll play the music. I tweeted out right before the night that he started, I hear trumpets. By the way, that's a banger, that song.
It's a good song. It's a good one.
It's a great song, too.
It is.
So, the Phillies, not only did they do those 2 moves, they released Juris Familia and Didi Gregorius. So, there are another ones like, what are you doing? Baltimore gets rid of Trey Mancini. They trade Jorge Lopez. They bring in Brett Phillips from Tampa, and it's like, what? Philly's the same thing, and Syndergaard is the move that really makes me scratch my head because he hasn't been that good, and he begged out of his start against the Mets when he was with the Angels. You can't beg out of a start against the Mets if you're in Philly.
Yeah.
Although my sister sent me a cool picture. I guess he pitched, and it was a rain-shortened game, and he walked out to the mound, and the lightning struck behind the stadium. I thought that was cool.
That's cool.
I love him. I really do. I mean, by Syndergaard, one of my favorite Mets of all time, but what he's done performance-wise this year has not lived up to the $21 million he took from the Angels to go out there. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Atlanta right before we get to your boys. The Braves made a ton of moves. They send Will Smith to Houston to get Jake Odorizzi, who pitched yesterday in the day game in the doubleheader. They send a candygram to the Angels for Raisel Iglesias. Why did they get him for a song? Because the Angels GM came from Atlanta. I'm shocked Syndergaard did not end up in Atlanta, to be honest with you. But I said this to you before we started, and I'm going to say it now in the air here. The Braves made the moves they did because they know this is not last year, and they have to catch the Mets. This weekend, not so much.
Help.
No.
Not help.
So, Acuna was a scratch today, by the way. He's not running right. Did Atlanta make enough moves to defend the crown or just to get in?
Well, you know how we've talked about this before. For a team to repeat is tough. It probably will be even tougher for them to get in. So I think this is just for them to be able to back into the playoffs. Because I think their aspirations it was close. Don't get me wrong. It was 2.5 games at one point that they were.
It was half a game at one point.
Okay, so even closer. So they were right there, but ultimately, it's just really difficult to kind of repeat what the magic that they had last year. So this right there, kudos to them for doing what they did and making the moves that they made. But this is just for them to kind of be as close as possible to get one of those 3 wild card spots. I don't think they ever really had the chance to run away with the division. And even if they were to, hop the Mets at one point, they would eventually slip, and the Mets would get back to where they should be.
So here's who they got. They sent Will Smith, their closer from last year, who threw the final pitch of the World Series, to Houston for Jake Odorizzi. Good middle of the rotation guy. Max Fried was very good last night, but Scherzer was just lights out. They also get Tigers outfielder. What is his name?
Grossman?
Robbie Grossman. And they get Raisel Iglesias. They made a couple of smaller moves too. Look, Anthopoulos is a great GM. He knew what he needed. They filled holes that they had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought it was hilarious they brought in Robinson Cano earlier in the year when Ozzie Albies got hurt. And that's another thing. They've had some injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And production-wise, they haven't missed him, but this team misses Freddie Freeman.
They do.
And I love Matt Olson. I really do. I think he's a great player. He's a good glove at first base. He played very well this weekend against the Mets. He's played well against the Mets all year, and Austin Riley is just a dog.
Mm-hmm.
They miss Freddie Freeman. And the first couple of years they didn't have Chipper. They missed Chipper. It's a different animal when you take a guy who was the cornerstone of your franchise and you don't have him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I don't hate the Braves as much as I used to. I'm lying. But I can't stand it. I can't stand Atlanta. I have my wife has family down there, and it took every bit of self-control I had to just start mean tagging them with everything I could. Like the one I sent you of Mr. Met slapping Blooper like he was Will Smith and Blooper was Chris Rock. That's going to hit circulation.
I just seen it. I just was just like, Mike.
So let's get to the White Sox, who were very quiet at the deadline. You've got. Did they do anything?
One move.
They moved Tony La Russa's walker out of the dugout?
No, they finally got him a bed for the bench.
What'd they do?
They traded their all-star caliber catcher in Reese McGuire to the Boston Red Sox for Jake Diekman.
Pitcher?
Lefty, bullpen guy. Back-end guy.
Not unneeded.
No, it was 100% needed. Considering the fact that we're probably going on 2 months now of one of their main guys in the bullpen, Aaron Bummer, one of their lefty guys, who has just been MIA, some type of injury. Have heard like next to crickets about the injury. So as far as I'm concerned, he's probably done for the season. But with the way that the White Sox are transparent, nobody knows what's going on with him. The man could have fallen off the face of the earth and they would not tell you.
They're really that tight-lipped? Who do they think they are, the Patriots?
Just a couple, maybe like a week or two ago, Luis Robert was dealing with what I kind of deemed as like vertigo. And then they were kind of really coy about it because they said, oh, he had to come back to Chicago to get tested. Came back here, and it was just, again, radio silence for days. And they said, oh, well, some type of virus or something like that, or he's going to go on a rehab stint. He should be back in about, 7 to 10 days. No check to see if it's like something with the brain, something with the ear, something with his vision, nothing. Who knows if they tested it? Just, I don't know.
I'm sorry, they sound like the Jets.
They're probably worse off than the Jets, let's be honest.
We're going to do an NFL show, as much as I'm not going to do the NFL this year. And we should probably do it on Jim's channel. I'm just going to leave it that way.
No, because I want to vent too. I
know you do.
I need to let it out.
I know you do. Yeah.
Because
so
at this point, I'm going to start rooting for some type of Canadian football team because I can't.
Part of me wouldn't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm going all Buckeyes this year, so.
Okay. I mean, we've talked offline before as the rationale as to why, but that's another story. We're baseball centric.
We're doing baseball.
Yep.
So now let's get to the biggest series of the year so far, And I'm saying, and yes, I'm saying it because I'm a Met fan. But when you get two teams like this and you have 5 games, oh, by the way, week and a half, 4 more in Atlanta. The New York Mets, the Atlanta Braves this past weekend, and I said it to you, I said it to Jim, I said it to Willie in text message and on Twitter, and I said it on his show. The biggest acquisition at the trade deadline was not Juan Soto, it was not Odorizzi, it was not anybody the Dodgers, the Giants, or anybody else got. The biggest deal at the deadline was the New York Mets activating Jacob deGrom, who threw 2 starts. By the way, he set the record for most strikeouts in the first 200 starts ever. 200 starts, Alex. 1,500 plus strikeouts.
Unbelievable.
The Mets went into the All-Star break with a lead, and he hadn't thrown a pitch. They went into this past weekend. He had 1 start, which he was absolutely dynamite. He hit a $1-2 on the gun a couple of times.
Oh my God.
And it's easy gas, Alex. He is mechanically sound. I sat here and I was joking with my wife, and I said, Tuesday night, I got to be in front of the TV. What's going on? DeGrom's pitching, and she knows the certain pitchers. Like when we first got together, it was Santana. That's how long my wife and I have been together. Now it's Jacob deGrom. But they're must-see TV. And then today, what he did today, 5 2/3, perfect. 12 strikeouts. He ends up walking Adrianza, who else the Braves got from Nationals at the deadline. And he gave a 2-run homer to Dansby Swanson before he came out. What a great weekend to be a Met fan. You start out on Friday night with Cookie. By the way, Cookie's got 12 wins. Taijuan Walker got shellacked.
I did see that. I did see that.
He got handed.
Yeah.
David Peterson's won 6 games. Scherzer was great. Sat last night. DeGrom tonight. But the story of the season for this team, they're starting to make TikToks about it.
I believe it.
That, of course, is Narco by Blaster Jacks and Timmy Trumpet. Who does Edwin Diaz think he is?
He's the best closer in baseball.
Dude, the 9th inning today, now I watched it on my phone. I have the SNY app on my phone. And he struck out the side of the 9th inning again. He was unhittable. His slider's at 94. He's throwing near 100 miles, and it's a razor blade. It's not that big loopy thing he came over here with from Seattle. Was it Austin Riley? Yeah. Austin Riley took a called 3rd strike. 101 black. Outside corner. Knee high.
No chance.
The Mets pitching staff today struck out 19.
Ooh.
Atlanta has the most home runs in the National League, 160, I think 5 at the end of the weekend. They've struck out 700 times.
Wow.
That's not going to translate.
No.
So let's talk about what the Mets just did. You take 4 out of 5 at home against Atlanta. By the way, Cincinnati comes in next.
Watch out.
Extend it.
Watch
Keep
out.
it going. To not to sound like this, they need to put their foot at Atlanta's throat. They need to just do this now.
Yeah.
But for the first time all year, the Mets have their horses. The entire rotation we thought we were going to see from opening day is finally together. You have now moved Chris Bassett to the 3. Cookie's pitching out of the 4. And Taijuan Walker's pitching out of the 5. Oh, by the way, they also activated James McCann and Trevor May for the bullpen, and Tyler McGill should be ready by the end of the month. He's already said, put me in the pen. Put me back there. Peterson's going to be the other lefty to go with Joely Rodriguez. Billy Epler took a lot of heat for not getting a big name at the deadline. A lot of heat from Met fans. Francisco Alvarez is still there. Vientos is still there. Beatty is still there. You still have, who's the pitcher? Matthew Allen. Was there a chip not named Juan Soto out there you would have dealt one of your big guys for?
No.
Okay.
No.
I wanted to see if somebody thought like me.
I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go out there and make a splash. Like they were connected with Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, David Robertson, as you mentioned. But kudos to them for not doing so, because then you would have had to include a Alvarez or another, hitter, another bullpen guy, and for them to be wise enough to just plug the holes that they needed, and not splash landings, but just suitable names to plug those holes. That's all you need to do. It doesn't need to be a marquee name, as far as I'm concerned, with where your team is at right now, and then getting a Jacob deGrom who's basically fresh going into the playoffs. He's fresh. You don't need nothing else. I'm sorry, you don't.
I love the Darren Ruff move. I think it cost them a little more than they wanted to pay. Mm-hmm. J.D. Davis was solid. I loved him every day. I will root for him. He's with another former Met fan favorite, Wilmer Flores, out in San Francisco now. And I thought it was cool that Ruff was the guy they got for Davis. Davis is from that area in California. I thought that was pretty cool. Having to include Steven Nagosic and a couple of other pitchers in that deal, probably overpaid for Darren Ruff. But now you have a guy who is raked against lefties, and you have Vogelbach who rakes against everyone. That's your DH platoon. Adding Tyler Naquin, your outfield just got longer because now, Marte needs a day, put Naquin in right field. He can play there. Nimmo needs a day, put Naquin in center.
It is the depth that you need going into that playoff push to give a guy, half a game off, a game off before, and a scheduled day off. You cruise control into the playoffs.
Here is the one position they're platooning right now that blew my mind. Eduardo Escobar is only playing against lefties.
Really?
Yeah. Against right-handed pitching, he's been bad. He's been real bad. Against lefties, this dude rakes. So Luis Guillorme's been playing third base almost every day until they bring in a lefty. The other day, was it game 2? Yeah, game 2 of the doubleheader. And Friday night when they got it to 8-6 until the late home run, and then Atlanta's bullpen closed it down. Vogelbach started at DH. Guillorme started at third. They brought in a lefty. Buck immediately went to Darren Ruff and Eduardo Escobar. It seems like that's going to be the moves going there. They're 6.5 up. That top of the rotation, they're built for anti-collapse. Am I seeing this because I'm a Met fan, or am I on it, or are they anti-collapse at the top of that rotation?
No, because you could pick your poison. You can go Scherzer, DeGrom, Scherzer, and then Bassett as your number 3.
We're in rarefied air. July 26th. They started their 2-game series with the Yankees. The Yankees had 4 or 5 more wins than the Mets going into that series. Houston had just overtaken them for the best record in baseball. The Dodgers, I think, had the top record in the National League, even though the Mets led the East. Mets and Yankees are both 70-39. We got 53 games left, brother.
The push is on.
It's about to get real.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been this excited about baseball. The 2015 deadline for the Mets was huge, too. You go out and you get Juan Uribe. You get Kelly Johnson. Then, of course, at the last minute, you get Cespedes. So when everybody's going in for Billy Epler, like, look at what the bullpen needed. Look at what this is. Cespedes could have got here in 2015 and hit 210 with 4 bombs for the last 2 months of the year. And it wouldn't have mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Givens had a rough first. Tone actually sent me a text when that happened. When they got Michael Givens from the Cubs, who's been iffy his first 2 outings. Any deals that kind of made you shake your head besides the ones we talk about?
I'm trying to think what.
Here, I'll throw a couple at you. Let's see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Rosenthal goes from the Giants to the Brewers.
I didn't even know he was still pitching. So there. I guess there's that point.
How about we talked about Jordan Montgomery briefly? Harrison Bader? You're giving up on Harrison Bader that quickly?
By everything that I've heard, they have supreme faith in Dylan Carlson, who was one of their highly touted picks that they had in their system, and now he's playing. I think he's playing full time in the bigs. I have not seen enough of him to say like, oh yeah, he's like the real deal guy. But apparently they feel confident enough that they can leave a speedy guy like Harrison Bader go.
Didn't he win a Gold Glove last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's got a cannon for an arm.
I mean, and his defense is well above average. Well above average. He goes and gets them with the best of them.
Here's a question. Yankees went out and got 2 outfielders. Stanton hurt worse than we think?
Yes. I think so.
That's not... Wow.
I mean, in my mind, yeah, it seemed like a subtle move, but when I heard the rationale, and I think I heard this from either Passon or Rosenthal, that the message was to go out there and to trade Montgomery, to go out and get an outfielder, so that way Judge doesn't have to play center field every day. So they're trying to help him out, trying to give him some days where he's maybe DH, and maybe put him in one of the corner outfields so he's not moving as much, because you lose him too, and then you're in murky water.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, I was very shocked at that, by the way. I really was. I was very shocked that Harrison Bader was the guy. Just because of how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Montgomery has been good, but he hasn't been what they thought he would be.
Mm-hmm.
But with their pitching issues, and I understand they end up getting Frankie Montas and whatnot, but with their pitching issues, I don't think I could let a starter who can eat innings go. I don't think I can.
Yeah, because I mean, there have been moments in the season where Garrett Cole pitches has a stellar performance. There was a point earlier in the season where Jamison Tyon was, I think, 10-2 or something like that, or he is 10-2. Yeah. But then he had a couple games right there where he was getting shelled and giving up 5 to 6 a game, going maybe 4 or 5 innings at most. So that hurt. And then Severino, I don't know if is he hurt or not. Luis Severino.
Severino's on the IL.
He's hurt.
Herman just came back.
Okay.
Who else I got in the rotation? So it's Montes, it's Cole, it's Tyon, it's Herman. Oh, Nestor Cortez, who is on an innings limit.
Mm-hmm.
So now they've got to manage this. See, that's why I don't think the AL East is done. 9.5 with 53 to play sounds like a lot, but Toronto's going to play the Yankees a bunch of times yet. What's another one that kind of blew my mind? Let's talk about Joey Gallo a little bit. Could there have been a guy happier to get out of the Bronx?
He had the 5 o'clock shadow by the time he landed in Los Angeles.
Never mind the 5 o'clock shadow. How about Michael Kay taking shots at him on the air?
I've seen that. That's what was the need for that?
The need was Gallo was hammered by the Yankee fans when he came in. He was. I don't care what Michael Kay or anybody says. Yankee fans will get on guys and stay on them. Gallo was never made for New York. There are certain guys who are made for New York. Anthony Rizzo, Aaron Judge, Jeter, David Wright. The list goes on. Joey Gallo was not. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Joey Gallo saw that 375-centimeter fence in right field and got Homer happy. He had 2 hits against the shift his first game with the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. So it was in your mind. It's just a little bit of the pressure, of where
I
the pins.
think, I think getting dropped. First of all, guys never played in the pennant race. He got dropped in a race last year and into the postseason with higher expectations he's ever been around. Some guys can handle it, and there's nothing wrong with saying they can't handle it because there's 30 other teams that don't have that pressure. I say 30 other teams because there's 2 teams in New York with the press and what have you. So good for him for getting out. I think that's going to be a great move for him, especially LA, because in LA, he wasn't a highly touted trade chip. He's not going to be the man. We all know it's Mookie Betts' team, no matter what you want to say. And he's got Cody Bellinger to deflect him. He's got Kershaw. There was nobody in the Yankee clubhouse that was willing to deflect for him.
That's true. I mean, the change of scenery is definitely going to benefit him. And as you mentioned, it's Mookie Betts' team. Not to mention he's got Freddie Freeman there, an MVP player. He's got Trey Turner there. Bellinger just hit his second bomb of the day. So
what's the score in that game now?
3-0 right now, but 3-0, and they are going up against it's Tyler Anderson going up against Darvish, so it's a good game. But the Padres just look lost out there. Just lost.
All right, so the Padres won the trade deadline. We can all say that.
Sure.
Right? Okay. It's not going to get them out of the first round, is it?
No.
Even if it's Atlanta. And no disrespect to the Braves by saying that. But by the time they get to the postseason, it's going to be Cronenworth, Soto, Tatis, Machado, Brandon Drury, who's been a beast. Still have Jurickson Profar.
Their offense, without a doubt, is a juggernaut, but can you rely on their pitching?
Darvish, you can. Clevenger, not so much. Who else is left? Blake Snell. You want to talk about a fall off from a Cy Young?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, their back end, sure, you got Hader and whoever else in front of them to kind of be the setup guy. And yeah, that offense probably from 2 through 6 or 7, a juggernaut for sure. But yeah, they'll score runs, but they're going to give up runs as well too. I mean, if Darvish is giving up runs today against the Dodgers, who's to say he's not going to give up runs against the Braves?
Agreed, and especially if the Braves are healthy going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're getting Albie's back or not. It was a broken foot. I don't know if he's down for the year, but depends on how rehab goes.
I think they were saying like 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So you're talking about 2 months. So probably sometime back in September.
Right at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And who knows if he's going to be right.
Well, that's another big factor too. I think it's just a matter of getting him back in game shape and game ready. Granted, I'm sure he probably won't play every day, but if he's there for the playoffs, that him in the lineup makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, I think they got Adrianza because they don't think he's back.
Which is quite possible.
All righty. What's another one? Tommy Pham.
Who's he going to beat
to
up
Boston.
Now?
Who did he hit?
Jack Peterson.
That's right. Would have been funnier if he would have went to the Giants.
Oh, God. That's a team that I wanted to talk with you about, the Boston Red Sox, because, yeah, you traded for Hosmer, you get Tommy Pham, but they're not going anywhere. You're in the last place in the East right now.
Yeah, first of all, let's deviate to that real quick. Who saw that coming?
Didn't see it.
And
That's
they
the
got
thing. Mm-hmm.
They got Hosmer, and they took his contract too.
Mm-hmm. What they're doing, I'm not 100% sure, and that's why.
JD Martinez is a free agent next year.
I mean, I think Devers and Bogarts are within the next year or two as well.
Yeah, but they'll keep them. They like to sign their big guys. I mean, look, you're talking about the team that they didn't keep Mookie Betts because I think Mookie wanted out and they knew it. But I think Devers and Bogarts will stay. Let's see here. George Montgomery with Merrifield. I really do like Whit Merrifield to Toronto. I think it's one thing they're missing.
Platoon guy, put him anywhere.
Who apparently also needs to.
He did get vaccinated.
Yeah. I think that's why I asked you that question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was 100% conditional. If you want to be on this team and if you want to be on a winning team, like he mentioned, you heard that comment what he made, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's another fall off from grace that I didn't see coming.
Oh.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Did my Mets dirty and then just fell off the face of the planet.
I mean, they weren't a major market, and what they put together was phenomenal, but it was not sustainable by any means.
It was sustainable if Hosmer didn't feel he was worth $190 million. Like everybody else except San Diego knew he wasn't worth $190 million.
And that's another fall from grace as well, too.
Him? Oh, he was the first. Jim had mentioned, because I talked to Jim the other night, he was the one who said to me, he goes, listen, who saw that? He was the first chip for them. Oh, volume was on. The Facebook's on here. I want to see if we had any comments. Nope, not yet. Oh, my wife shared it. That's very nice of her.
Thank you.
But your Hosmer was the first chip to go to San Diego, because then it was him, it was Machado, then you make the trade for Tatis. I'm shocked that he's gone. Especially, who's playing first base for them now?
For Boston?
Josh Bell.
Oh, San Diego? Yeah, Bell.
Told you, Alex, I'm tired. There was one other move. Oh, Tyler Mahle from Cincinnati to Minnesota. I saw him briefly when he pitched against the Mets in Cincinnati, I'm pretty sure. Good young arm. Besides Sonny Gray and Dylan Bundy, who's been going for Minnesota all year? You're in the Central, that's why I'm asking.
I don't keep up with Minnesota as much as I should, and I know that they're right there, but let me see. I actually have their tab up right now. Oh, they have Chris Archer.
How are they in first place?
Luck, I guess.
Really, Chris Archer?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to use him on 2K or on MLB.
It's mind-boggling to me as well too. I mean, for them to be in first place this far into the season was shocking to me, and that's why when you brought it up earlier, who I would pick to come out of the Central, it's got to be the Guardians without a doubt. And I know
blows my mind.
Yeah, and that's just because I don't even want to mention their name, the team that I represent here, the team that I have to support, but it just kind of is even more of an indictment as to how terrible and how pathetic they've been this entire season.
Well, then let's spend the last few minutes on our two teams. I know we hit on the Mets just this weekend because of the magnitude of the series and what they did or didn't do on the trade deadline. So let's talk about your White Sox. What is the one thing that they haven't done that has just driven you right to basically treating them like Voldemort, not mentioning their name.
Fire Tony La Russa and Frank Menachino into the sun.
And shoot them into the sun.
Fire him to the sun.
You want them to stick Nagy in the same plane?
Adios. No, I will say this. I think they are part of the problem because if you wanted to bet on one thing on the White Sox, bet the over on ground ball outs. Bet the over every
Really?
time. Yes, this team hits grounds into more double plays and ground outs than I have ever seen in my entire life. For a team that has so much pop or power hitters, it's just roll over and roll over and roll over every time.
Is Menachino the hitting coach?
Yeah, because he batted at 397 through his career.
So, well, listen, all kidding aside, how do you have a punch and Judy hitter, Luis Robert, my new favorite player to use on the show, your left fielder, what the heck's his name again?
Eloy?
I love Eloy. My two favorite players in my Diamond Dynasty team are Jazz Chisholm and Eloy. Jazz Chisholm was like 15 bombs.
Yeah.
It's
just go. You can finish your point. What's that?
Abreu.
Mm-hmm.
Moncada still at second, right?
He's at third.
He's at third. Sorry. How do you have a punch and Judy hitter as their hitting instructor?
No answer to that question.
I can't.
No, you're spot on.
Because that's a thumper team. There are teams who are well balanced, and there are teams that are thumpers. The guards are well balanced. Those dudes are thumpers. You got to have a thumper there. You know who'd be good for your boys? Chili Davis. Chili would be great for your guys.
Somebody other than Frank Menachino, who was a probably 225 career hitter.
You need somebody who could do both.
I agree. The team just as a whole, they lack the ability to have situational hitting. I can't tell you how many times I've experienced this. Some guy will say, Eloy, leadoff double. The next three batters, out, and they don't score. There's no ability to hit the ball to the right side of the field, or bunt a guy over and bring him in successfully, or hit to the left side, or hit the ball in the air to get that guy over to third. It's non-existent. I don't know if it's them, if it's what they're being taught, or as just a overall whole that they're just not focused or don't really care because they still deem it still early in the season. But it's just the lack of awareness, the lack of effort. There's no hustle in this team. So I don't know if it's from the top down or what, but it's just nonstop.
I didn't realize it was that bad.
It's bad. It's terrible. They're 2 games over 500, and they should be at least 15 games over 500 with the type of roster that they have. Because their pitching hasn't been terrible. As far as I'm concerned right now, Dylan Cease should win the Cy Young in the American League. He's got probably one of the lowest ERAs in all of baseball.
Oh, good.
Michael Kopech has been pitching pretty well. Johnny Cueto, the guy who was riding horses 6 months ago, is probably one of your top 3 pitchers. But when it comes to the offense, some games it's 9 runs, 10 runs, and then they'll go 2, 3, 4 games and score 7 runs total in those games.
Now, not for nothing, though, with the lineup you guys have, that unfortunately is going to happen with the boppers. And I get your situational hitting thing. I really do. There is a lack of hit the ball to the right side now. Everybody's worried about OPS and launch angle and exit velo. I get it. I didn't realize it was that bad. I thought you just hated Tony La Russa and were just going crazy. Which is still a valid thing.
I do. I'm not a fan of his, and I don't think that he was the right manager to be in charge of this team. for whatever reason, they say he connects with these young guys on the roster because they're all early to mid 20s, maybe a couple guys just over 30. But I feel that he's coaching as if this is 2005 and we're in 2022. He's just not up to date with the game, and they're not going to fire him. He was Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner's hire, so he's basically not going anywhere until he decides to say, I'm going to wave the white flag myself and walk out the door on my own, or the contract expires. That's just the way it's going to be.
All right, so we've got some comments on Facebook. Again, my wife being huge about this. So my dad said, why empty the minors when nothing's guaranteed? We said with the Mets. Of course, we said that. One of my favorite UPS dudes, who's a buddy of mine on here. How about Jim Thome as the hitting coach for the White Sox?
We can do that. I can, you know what? I can bring Ozzie Guillen back as the coach. He'll light a fire under people.
Ozzie Guillen would actually light fires under people.
He would light fires under people, yes, which is what they need.
I mean literal fires. I'm not talking about.
No, I mean actual fires with wood and everything else you need to start a fire.
Yeah, listen. Ozzy's crazy.
He is. Yes.
So yeah. Yes, Jim Thome would be a huge upgrade over Frank Menechino. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He should be. He's going to be good there. That's really the only update. He said Archer was in Minnesota. Josh Bell. Yep. So yeah, we do have some interaction. I didn't see any on YouTube. I went there too. I got to keep this up like this so I can answer the questions that come in. And anybody who's watching, I know there's 3 people still on here. Any questions you got, ask away. We probably got about another 20-some minutes in us, or in me anyway. So, all right, let's go back cross country. Let's go back to the Mets. Big weekend. Extend the lead to 6.5. You got Cincinnati coming up. You got another set with the Braves. You got the Phillies coming in soon, too. If it's me, I might almost stay with a 6-man rotation, which most people would look at me and go, why wouldn't you want to get DeGrom on his normal rest and do those things? David Peterson has been too good to take out of the rotation. You're going to get Tyler McGill back. He's almost ready. By the end of August, he should be ready to go. So here's my question to you. Right now, your platoon at catcher is James McCann and Tomas Nido, who's been great. Are you bringing up Francisco Alvarez?
Yeah, why not?
2 reasons why, 2 reasons why not. I'll give you all 4. 2 reasons why. This dude mashes. And they're going to bat him 9th. Second reason you bring him up. He did something already this year that I think is going to be humongous for his development going forward. He caught both DeGrom and Scherzer this year on rehab starts. And they let him call the game. Which, when you're talking about 2 dudes who, if DeGrom stays on this trajectory and Scherzer's already going, are going to end up in Cooperstown and they trust you to call their game, that's a big move. I understand not yet, but there's got to be both sides of this, dude. And I'm the same guy who told me about Archer and about Jim Thome just said that. I agree with you. I'm leaning toward not yet, too. But if you need some pop off the bench or you don't think McCann's the guy, if you open up the lead big enough, I can see them doing it. Now, here's why not yet. He's young. He's very young. He's
How old is he?
He's in his early 20s, maybe 21. He's the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. It's going to be a tough move to bring him up. You falter at all, you're in a dogfight with Atlanta. And I don't know if you're going to hurt a kid by bringing him and putting him and throwing him into the fire like that. Did Kopech come up during one of your runs to the playoffs and pitch well? Or am I not
No,
remembering that correctly?
no. I mean, they did bring him up, but they used him very sparingly because they knew that
Okay.
the lack of experience.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he was part of a run to the postseason. I mean, in recent history, it's worked for the Mets. Your rotation in the 2015 World Series was all homegrown. You bring up Michael Conforto in July, and he's your starting one of your starting outfielders in the World Series. Hits two bombs one off Chris Young and one off Duffy in Game 4. So there's two schools of thought. I would lean toward not bringing him up, but I'd also have to see what kind of contribution I'm getting out of the catching position. McCann had a big hit yesterday. Tomas Nido leads all of baseball in sacrifice bunts.
It's something.
And laid down a suicide squeeze. Buck is playing the full playbook. He is pulling out all the stops, and he is the biggest reason that this team is 6.5 up in this division. Do you think a change at the top would help the White Sox more to go to a younger manager? Or would you want to bring in somebody who had experience to try and right the ship of this team?
I personally would like to bring in somebody with experience, and I say that willingly, that it doesn't have to be somebody who's like 40 years old. Like, you could be in your 50s or something, or whatever it may be. I'm not discriminating on age or nothing like that. I think with as young as most of these guys are in this team, and yes, they have a little bit of playoff experience, but basically one and done. They need somebody who's kind of been to the promised land, who can take them over that hump and just give them the push that they realistically need.
Do you want Ozzie back?
I would take Ozzie back.
See,
I know I know he's not going to do it. Nor do I feel that front office would not bring him back in the first place either. So no matter what I want, he does not get along with the ownership nor the general manager on a personal level. So I don't see them bringing him back in the first place. So it's wishful thinking.
Here's a name for you. And I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here. And I think he got a raw deal because of the rosters he was given in both 2020 and 2021. Luis Rojas, the former manager of the Mets, who's now the third base coach of the Yankees. You want to talk about lineage. You know who his old man is. Is Felipe Alou. You guys have a very big Latin base to this team.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's another name that no one would think of? Willie Randolph.
It's another one.
Think about what he did in 3.5 years with the Mets. He was phenomenal. Hasn't gotten another chance.
Mm-hmm.
Again, part of that was the roster he was given. They were an old team then, where your young core was a 7th or 8th year Carlos Beltran and Wright and Reyes. Yes, we got another comment on Facebook. Yeah, Buck uses the analytics, by the way. He goes with his gut 99% of the time, but he does use the analytics. He's the perfect fusion guy because he's been through both.
Mm-hmm.
So Willie Randolph's a nice touch, I think, for you guys. And he's another one who's been to the promised land how many times? As Joe Torre's right hand.
Yep.
With the Yankees. And no, not as much he doesn't use the analytics, but he uses them.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of melds them together.
I mean, that's half the battle. Like, I get it. A guy like Buck Showalter, a guy like La Russa, who've been around baseball for eons, basically. They know the game inside and out, but you kind of have to evolve with the game, and that's kind of what's lacking here. I feel it in Chicago, that it's maybe acknowledged, but it's ultimately I'm gonna do what I feel is right, and a lot of times that kind of burns them, and that's how that's why they are where they are in terms of standings.
I'm very surprised Mark McGwire is not the hitting instructor in Chicago. He was good. He was good with San Diego.
I get it, and I mean, that would almost make sense as well too, because if you want to keep La Russa at the helm, McGuire played for La Russa twice.
Yeah, and really sought La Russa out when he was in Oakland and La Russa was in St. Louis. Um, there are so many storylines that we're going to run into over the next 53 games.
I mean, it's like you said, it's going to get real interesting. Either some teams are going to ramp it up and make their leads even bigger if they're at first place. Some teams are going to fall back. Some teams that are behind are going to catch up to those guys that are leading the charge. So it's going to get interesting.
Okay, I'm going to ask you. I'm throwing you on the spot for this one, which I seem to do to you all the time, and I'm really sorry about that.
It's okay.
Right now, in first place, you have the Yankees, the Twins, Houston, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Dodgers. Out of those 6, which one of them is going to end up a wild card?
Minnesota.
You really think Cleveland's going to come back and win this division?
I think so. I mean, they were there just a couple years ago. They were playing the guys on the north side here in Chicago, so they've been there before. They beat the teams like the Yankees before. They beat other top caliber teams here on the AL side. So I think they do have the ability to get there if their pitching can remain what it's been doing over the course of the past couple months, and their hitting can just remain consistent. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, big fan of Naylor, big fan of Andres Jimenez. You know him all too well. Ahmed Rosario, another guy you know fairly well as well too.
Where'd the power come from on him?
Exactly. So guys like that in there who are not, like I said, marquee names, but who can get it done, who can hit the ball all over the field, do well in situational moments of the game. That right there will pay dividends.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's the one I would pick too. I think they're too good not to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're more well-rounded than both teams too. Of those 3,
they really are.
So, okay, we had the same answer for that. Now I want to give you a couple of stats that just blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That no one's talking about, because a lot of stuff has come out. You mentioned Andres Jimenez. There are people who have come out and said that the Guardians, have won that trade. I am not one of those. I think it's too early. But right now, the headliner of that trade, of course, was Francisco Lindor, who is 5 home runs from setting the record for a single season of home runs by a Mets shortstop. Right now, 270, 19, 77. Sounds like 30 and 100 to me.
30 and 100 for sure.
Pete's out of his mind.
He's on another planet too, man.
Pete's got 29 bombs and 95 RBIs already.
You think he's got a chance for 130 in terms of RBIs?
Outside shot.
Outside shot.
I think they're stop pitching to him. He actually sees less balls in the strike zone than any hitter in baseball, and that's what he's done. This past weekend, he drove in runs, I think, in every game. Today, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he kept the ball fair and hit the bag. But the 2 before that, he broken bat hits to right center.
When you really think about it, though, you know the type of hitter he is. I mean, obviously he's a power guy. You know, he's got that, light tower power basically. But when you got guys around him in the lineup who can also hit, who can also rake as well too, you got to pick your poison at some point. You can't just avoid them because you're just going to be walking guys in left and right. So,
yeah, and they're hitting Vogelbach directly behind him now. So, and that really is pick your poison. They went back to back the other night. The polar bear and the grizzly bears are calling them, which I think is hysterical. we got to talk about Mike Trout a little bit, and that's rough.
His back injury could cost him some years of his career, and that's devastating for the game of baseball.
You know what this feels like? Griffey.
Yeah.
This feels like Griffey.
Mm-hmm.
And scarily feels like Griffey.
I mean, and when you think about it, yeah, Griffey, basically a career-ending injury, and this right here too. Your back, that's bad
David
news.
Wright.
Bad news, man.
David Wright.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying he can play with this. They're saying this is not like stenosis. This is something that can be managed with whatever they're going to do to him. Obviously, I'm not a doctor.
Mm-hmm. Just on that same front as well. Just such a tragic. I mean, it's tragic to see that he's hurt, and obviously, I wish him all the best in terms of recovery. I want to see him play in the game of baseball. I would love to see him in another uniform on a team that has playoff potential because, as we mentioned on numerous occasions, just to see him rot over there in Los Angeles it hurts.
The other, did you see they said they hit 7 home runs in their day and lost?
Yeah.
I just can't. How?
It's terrible. And then I also feel the same way for Show. And you made mention to me on a number of occasions that, the ground in Los Angeles in terms of Anaheim is rumbling that he's on his way out, and you mentioned where he could be going. So
I'll mention it on here. Billy Epler is the GM who brought Shohei Ohtani to the United States.
And who's he the GM of now?
Billy Epler is the GM of the New York Mets.
Thank you.
Willie and I had this conversation. I'll ask you this one too.
Mm-hmm.
Willie said, "Where do you pitch him?" And I said, "The 4. Or the 3, excuse me."
Okay.
And I said, "Okay, Willie, where do you hit him?"
You asking me now?
Where do you hit him? So let me give you the Mets lineup on a normal day. Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso. We're going to go against a right-handed pitcher, Vogelbach, McNeil, Luis Guillorme, Tyler Naquin, and whichever catcher, be it McCann or Nito. Do you slide him into the 5 spot where Vogelbach is because he's got a DH? Do you hit him at the top of the lineup because he runs like the wind? You hit him lead off?
He's leading off for me.
Bat him lead off and bat Nimmo 9th.
Sure.
And yes, the Angels are the biggest underachievers. The guy said the same thing. I wouldn't hit him lead off.
No?
No. I wouldn't hit him lead off because bringing a guy in to hit lead off 1 day a week isn't as conducive as sliding a guy into the 5 slot when he pitches. Although he can hit when he pitches. I guess, don't they have that rule that if the pitcher hits, you can sub in a DH or something?
Yep.
So I guess that's doable, but I would rather hit him 5th.
Okay.
It is a purely selfish thing to say. Alonso would hit 60. Pete would hit 60 with Ohtani behind him. Jeez. Because then they're going, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, no kidding. What are you going to do?
It's a pipe dream. I don't think Artie Moreno would ever let him get out of there.
But at a certain point, though, can he not, force his way out of there? I mean, he's Shohei Ohtani.
Well, when he's a free agent, he can just not stay. But it becomes... I mean, remember, we're coming up on 18 years since the MLBPA told Alex Rodriguez he couldn't go where he wanted to and take a pay cut and they voided the trade to the Red Sox.
Do you know what he has left on his deal?
No, I don't. I think it's 1 or 2 years. He's getting close.
If I were him, I'd be ready. I would have my bags packed already. I'm sorry.
I would have too. If I was Trout, I would have stayed. But I think Trout would end up in Philadelphia so he can stay in Anaheim only once. Being a South Jersey kid.
Yeah.
It's I don't understand how they're so bad.
I mean,
even with mediocre pitching.
Yeah, and here's another name for you. And you mentioned him earlier, Rendon. What a fall from grace as well too. And his has been because of injury, but
yeah,
that's
he is another one that just fell off the face of the earth.
It doesn't matter. It's like whoever you just pick a name of pick a player, put them on the Angels, and they just all out to pasture basically.
Oh, the guy from Texas, the home run derby 2008.
Oh, Hamilton?
Josh Hamilton. Who else?
Another perfect example. It's whoever goes over there just falls into the abyss of what is Anaheim.
Somebody just commented they started off hot and fell apart like a cheap suit. They did, though.
They did.
Because there was a time that the two divisions in each league, the East and the West, were dominated by LA and New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then Houston got hot and forget it.
Yep. And it didn't matter that they fired Joe Madden because they forgot how to play baseball afterwards under Phil Nevin. So
I remember when he came up. I remember him at Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
So we got a few minutes left here. Let's get to the part that I was going to try and avoid like the plague, but I can't not. We lost the voice of baseball.
We did.
Me personally, I am very, very fortunate. The Mets had one set of broadcasters for my entire life up until 2006, when they broke the radio team of Howie Rose and Gary Cohen apart, and then, of course, Gary Cohen now with the Mets on TV with Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling. Howie Rose is the voice of the Mets on the radio. But the soundtrack of our summers as kids is very slowly going away.
Mm-hmm.
With losing Vince Scully the other day, which him, Harwell, Hawk,
Joe Buck.
God help us all when Euchre goes.
Oh, God.
What's your favorite Vince Scully call that you've heard?
Oh, gosh. I mean, there's so many of them that I vividly remember. Because, I mean, having that familial connection to Los Angeles and them being diehard Dodger fans and being in Los Angeles on multiple occasions, just kind of it's so difficult because there were moments where there was like nothing really going on in the game. It was maybe in between pitchers or whatever, and he would just go on like a random tangent of a experience that he had meeting somebody earlier in the day, and them not really recognizing who he was, and ultimately coming down to find out he was the voice of the Dodgers for eternity, basically.
60-some years.
Yes, but I think what resonated with me was the fact that he was just so likable, so down to earth. He was just your everyday person, your everyday Joe, essentially. And I think that's kind of what really resonates with me. His relaxed demeanor behind the mic, but so vibrant, so voice so recognizable is kind of what will live on from with me forever. And he's one of the reasons why I love the game of baseball. Just it was so smooth for him, um, but just like you didn't have to be watching the game, you can hear his voice and you can see the play vividly going on. So that's what resonates with me.
A couple years ago, he read the James Earl Jones speech from uh, Field of Dreams,
Hmm.
which was amazing. But being who I am, little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. Very funnily, the day they retired Keith Hernandez's number, Gary Cohen made a very similar call when the Mets won that game on an error. Between that call, of course, the Kirk Gibson home run, if you want to take a master's course in broadcasting, go on YouTube and find the broadcast of Sandy Koufax's perfect game from, I think it was 1965. It was a master class. You're talking about the guy who called the World Series the Dodgers won in Brooklyn. He called Fernando. He has been behind the mic for an insane amount of no-hitters. If you just think about the players that he got to know, the call, of course, because he was the voice of the Dodgers. He called Henry Aaron's 715th home run. Buckner, by the way, was the left fielder that night.
Okay.
So two of his most famous calls involved Bill Buckner. He used to do the NBC national games with Joe Gargiola, which, because I'm a lot older than you, I remember Saturday afternoons where they'd be playing the Mets, or the Mets would be playing somebody, and Vin and Joe were on the call. It's kind of like Joe Buck and Schmaltzy or Buck and McCarver for all those years. So that was tough. That was tough the other day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. So, Alex, outside of the Deadline Deal episode I have to listen to, what's coming up on row 7? By the way, I like the shirt.
Thank you. I am ever so slightly, because we're already in August and football is almost here around the corner, and I have to somehow grit and bear. And you're right there with me too, um, in fighting the good fight of supporting my team. I'm going to put out a football episode, and maybe I'll have you be a part of this, because I'm going to need thoughts and prayers. I'm going to need a lot of them. So we'll have to plan that out probably in the next couple of weeks. But I know the season is fast approaching. We're what, about a month away right now, right?
Yeah, I know I think it's 44 days from Ohio State Notre Dame. So you know where my brain is.
Yeah, and I know, I think I've seen that this is the last Sunday of the year without football.
Oh, yay.
So does college football kick off next week?
No, the first weekend of September. September 3rd, the national game of the week on ABC at night. Marcus Freeman brings his Notre Dame Fighting Irish into the horseshoe to play Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. I cannot wait for Ryan Day to hang 50 to 60 points in his team.
You don't like Notre Dame either?
Freeman's been running his mouth, and he played for Jim Tressel. How did it work out when Miami ran their mouth and they won a national title? It didn't. And I don't think Notre Dame's got anybody who can cover Jackson Smith and Jigba. As far as Big Rican goes, we will have a Wise Guys show in the next couple weeks, which will be on Jim's page, because it's going to get hairy. We're trying to get Natalie Turk, who is the Cleveland Guardians beat writer for Sports Illustrated, on. We've had some scheduling conflicts, but she has said she wants to discuss what she would like to discuss, and it's got nothing to do with baseball. I can tell you this: I will not do a Cleveland Browns themed episode this season. My football stuff will be mostly Ohio State. I will cover the NFL as a whole, so I will talk about them. But unlike the past several years, there will not be a Browns-themed episode of Big Rican on Sports. So, Alex, tell us where we can find you, and let's get out of here.
So you can find me all over your major podcast outlets: Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts at Row7 Podcast. You can listen to me, follow me on Twitter at Row7 Podcast, or my personal Twitter at AlexRG_8, tweeting all things sports, mainly baseball related, but right now we'll kind of ease into football, basketball, and everything else because I'm just a nutcase. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
As always, Big Rican can be found here on both YouTube at Big Rican on Sports. It's on my personal page on YouTube because Restream does not allow you to go to your other pages. So it's if you saw it on Facebook, thank you for everybody who watched. I see my sister's watching now. My wife's been watching the whole time. Big Rican on Sports on Twitter, or at Big Rican on Sport on Twitter. Follow the podcast, Anchor, Breaker, Spotify, Radio, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon. Ask Alexa. Play Big Rican. Got the Wise Guys show, and Alex, remember, you got the invitation already. The Wise Guys will be a year old come September.
You have a ballpark date as of now, or not just yet?
We don't have a ballpark topic yet. But as you know with Jim and I, it doesn't matter what the topic is, we're going off the rails.
Spewing profanities left and right.
That's if it's on Jim's page. If it's on here, of course,
correct.
I'm age appropriate.
For the kids. The kids.
Exactly. Okay. Alex, here's to the last 53, man.
Go get them.
Best time of the year. Have a great night, everybody. Alex, good to see you again. Talk to you soon.